Hello everyone. Welcome to the latest edition of Bynry's Zoomcast series, Utilities Cloud Guide, where we highlight ways in which utilities are navigating from traditional operations to everything that's technology. I'm your host, Krishna, today, and we welcome Jennifer Loudon. Jennifer is an environmental scientist with 20 years of laboratory experience. She has a bachelor's degree in marine sciences and a master's degree in environmental sciences from Rutgers University. She's also founder and CEO of Intelligent Water Services. It's a smart water startup that offers wastewater treatment wastewater treatment to utilities, which is a streamlined way of managing their industrial users through the use of blockchain technology. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I am a giant water nerd. I have made a life out of being a water nerd. I have a couple of degrees in sciences where anything that ended in ology, there's a good chance that I've studied it. And right after grad school, I was fortunate enough to be able to get a job for a wastewater treatment utility as their resident laboratory manager. So as you can see, my bat cave behind me. And over the last 12 years in the industry, I've kind of found myself saying there has to be a better way of doing this. Quite often, unfortunately, when it comes to treating the flow of information, I like to say that utilities, both water and wastewater, are really good at treating physical flow, but when it comes to the flow of that information that goes along with that, we suck. to put it bluntly. That is not our strong suit. But I think that the more utilities and cities and communities in general start talking about smart cities and incorporated communities, the more there's an increase in smart communities, the more utilities are getting on board with that. So they're starting to incorporate smart water, which you ask 10 different people what smart water means, they'll give you 10 different answers. But for me, it's incorporating the people who are at the utility, the process that the utility is doing, and the technology to advance both the people and the process. So that's kind of where I started to roll around the idea of founding Intelligent Water Services. And once the start of the pandemic hit, things started to kind of clarify a bit, where people were working more remotely from home. They were trying to access information from the utility, from offsite. And I again, there has to be a better way of doing this. And it clicked that, blockchain is kind of one of those new technologies that isn't really known much about. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't know what blockchain was even going back to the start of 2018. It wasn't through a happenstance that I ended up finding out about its use in supply chain management. And, I had heard about crypto and Bitcoin, and I was like, okay, that has some application somewhere. And then I heard about its use in supply chain management, and I was like, oh, this is cool. What if we can start looking at water and wastewater like a supply chain? And now comes this whole new breadth of technology that we have applicable to us. So that's when I really
pretty much
started
exactly what we're excited to speak to you about. We want to understand and have a take, basically discuss with you what your take is on water utilities and how they can adopt blockchain as a technology, right? Starting with something that really intrigues me is what is it that blockchain means for water utilities? What do we mean when we say blockchain and utilities today?
So there are some utilities that I've spoken to where you say the word blockchain and immediately their maintenance supervisor goes, I want to see if I have a role of that. And there are other utilities where you say the word blockchain and they only think of crypto, which is fair. Again, that's the sexy part of blockchain. That's what's been getting the most attention. But what blockchain actually is for utilities is another tool in the smart water toolbox. It's not an end in itself, but it's a means to an end. It's a tool that can be used to increase information being sent to different places. It can be used to increase
make it more finer and
transparency.
accurate.
Exactly, exactly. So it's something that utilities can deploy to fix a problem that they are having.
So how would it exactly, help in addressing the key challenges that are being faced by water utilities today?
So we are a very siloed industry. Even within a small plant like mine, we have, a few people that are on duty at any given time for any department, but there's very little communication between those departments, even just among a few people. And it's something that has been recurring through several utilities that I've spoken with. It's just that lack of communication and that lack of transparency where everybody isn't really on the same page. And what blockchain is, because it is a distributed ledger and it is a ledger that is immutable, because anything that goes onto it needs to be approved by the consensus of everybody involved. That is a new way for utilities to communicate. So any challenges where you need to get information to people who are working from home or working remotely from a different place within that facility. There are some utilities, especially larger ones in New Jersey, that have multiple sites that they need to keep track of. So anything trying to get information in a shared space where everybody is trusting that information that otherwise they wouldn't have immediate and immutable access to, that's where blockchain is really going to start to shine, just on its nature of being distributed. Throw in the addition of smart contracts, which is basically, a giant, for simplicity's sake, a giant if-then statement. If this happens, if this criteria is met, then this is going to automatically happen. If you have a distributed ledger and you couple that with smart contracts, which are also common in many blockchain platforms, then you're able to start having things automatically executed. So you have a shared ledger, you know that it's accurate, you know that everybody has access to it. You can then start to automate responses to the information being uploaded to that shared ledger.
I see. All of this is possible only with technology, right? Or is there a way for most of these utilities in the US right now, specifically, where they're not tech savvy? So does that work, or you do need to upgrade, and there are specific upgrades required on the technology front?
So the cool thing about blockchain is that most platforms are effectively technology agnostic. So it's not like a lot of existing SCADA software where everything is proprietary. Like, for example, my company is actually helping with that, because we noticed that there was a problem not only with the way that a lot of utilities have to work with their industrial users and that flow of paperwork and flow of information, but also in cybersecurity and being able to have utilities, have a truly cyber secure remote way to access their critical infrastructure, to access their assets. So we noticed that there needs to be a change. Because of that need, most companies working in blockchain are developing things that are existing technology or existing platform agnostic. It can just be, plugged right in. It's not something that the utility needs to have somebody who knows how to program for this, who knows how to knows how the consensus mechanisms work. Most companies, such as mine, are also doing it as a service. So we've heard of software as a service or data as a service. My company is doing a process as a service, because again, I'm that people, process, and technology kind. So
Correct.
really working with things, you don't need to have specific upgrades. You don't need to have a lot of hardware installed if your utility already has some sensors in place, because obviously you want to have computer terminals, you want to have some online analyzers, you want to have some inline sensors that are going to be able to feed data to the blockchain platform, to this shared database, if you will. So as long as you have a basic smart water or a basic sensor infrastructure in place, the company that you choose to be your service provider for this
can
doesn't
easily
need
plug
to
and play.
install anything else. You can just kind of plug it right in. And again, because it's a distributed system, anything that happens, like for example, my company, I'm able to go in, I have my blockchain code on a little Raspberry Pi setup, that's what holds the main source code. So, but whatever change I'm able to make on my terminal is able to be spread throughout the rest of the system. So I don't need to install anything on a utility owned machine because it's
That's very
distributed.
interesting.
It's updated at the same time. Exactly.
Yeah, very interesting, because I think step one for most utilities is to get that tech upgrade, to go away from being a paper driven traditional utility to being online, being tech savvy, and then using benefits of different marketplaces which are sprouting up, where you take these different things which are available and you plug them in, and it moves from then on, because then there are so many benefits that you weren't even aware of, which suddenly become accessible to you. That makes total sense. Is there any specific issue that you faced recently, or specific issue that you've helped a utility with blockchain as a live example?
Yeah. So, and I alluded to this before with the cybersecurity and the SCADA. That's one of the things that really is standing out right now. I mean, unfortunately, we can't go more than a couple of weeks in this country without hearing some sort of cybersecurity headline. And I think that is something that there's always going to be a bit of like a cybersecurity arms race, and utilities in general are usually pretty far behind on that curve. And it's just because it's something that we never really paid much attention to before, last year, the hack in Oldsmar, it wasn't really on our radar that, hey, this is a thing that we are subject to. It was always something that happened to everybody else. And now water and wastewater utilities are faced with the reality that, yeah, we are targets of cyber attack and we need to up our game. So technology is one of those things where we need to implement it correctly, and it needs to be done right in order to really work. And especially with blockchain, because it has so much potential, because it is such a new technology, saying it's unhackable is like saying the Titanic is unsinkable. But there is still a curve that you're on where, yeah, blockchain does have some serious cybersecurity benefits to it that utilities are interested in. And I've spoken with a few utilities around the country that are interested in learning about this and implementing this and having a pilot installation of it. So it's one of those things where we can't go back down the curve. We need to keep upping our game. And I think blockchain can really help in that cybersecurity front.
Do you think it's going to there's going to be a time when every utility is going to reach a point where they are going to have to upgrade, or it's way ahead in the future when it comes to blockchain?
So I think utilities are starting to understand that upgrades in technology are a necessity. They're often a begrudging necessity. Most utilities don't want to change just because, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, one of my absolute heroes in the scientific field, U.S. Navy Rear Admiral and pioneering woman in STEM and computer science, Grace Hopper, said the most dangerous phrase in the language is "we've always done it that way." And I think that's kind of the mindset of a lot of utilities. Oh, well, this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah, I think it's lagging behind in how.
Exactly. We've reached a point where, again, we're becoming so smart. We're becoming so connected, where the way we've always done it isn't going to work anymore. We have to progress just to keep up with that arms race that I was talking about.
So I guess in terms of the near future, the short-term future, we are looking at a lot of tech upgrades, especially post-COVID. And do you see blockchain getting heavily implemented, especially in small and medium-sized utilities, which are the massive sort of the most populated set of utilities across the US.
I do, and part of it is wishful thinking for the future of my company, but I really do, and I think again that hurdle or that perceived hurdle is that, oh well, we don't have this particular set of expertise at our utility. That's okay. Again, most companies are doing this blank as a service, or you see something AAS as a service. You don't need to worry about it. It's kind of like your Netflix account. You pay Netflix, you don't need to worry about knowing how to program getting a movie onto your personal computer. Same thing. So once that perceived hurdle has been crossed, I think that more utilities will see the benefits of it, because with small and medium-sized utilities, we are, and I'm including my own utility amongst them, we are the most populous, and also we're the most susceptible to disruption. So while large utilities tend to get all the headlines for good or bad reasons, take for example the use case of industrial users. You have a small to mid-sized utility. If there is an industrial discharge that's funky, that's coming down the pipe, that wastewater utility is going to be really impacted by that. Whereas a larger utility may just be able to kind of dilute it out, and it's not going to be as strong of a hit to its biological treatment. But for a small to mid-sized utility, like my utility was out for months after a really nasty industrial hit, lasting less than 24 hours. So if we had, that early warning system, if we're with sensors installed, if we had a communication network, an advanced digital communication and data management platform that was based on blockchain and smart contracts, we could have that information distributed to all relevant parties in real time. We could have the smart contracts automatically execute things to respond to that discharge in real time. We would have been able to recover a lot quicker. And I think it's the same thing for water utilities. And if there is a cybersecurity breach, again, with blockchain, you have that additional benefit to enhance cybersecurity features, but also it helps in recovery as well. Because you have a distributed ledger, all of the terminals on that platform are going to have basically a copy of the preceding information. So they will have information that will enable that water utility to recover much quicker from a disruption without having to go through 2 weeks worth of backups and then what happened after that and access things offsite and, rebuild from scratch almost. So I think small to mid-sized utilities are really going to come on board with things, partly because they see the benefit of it, and partly because as cybersecurity in particular becomes a big thing with headline news, there are going to be more regulations pushing for utilities of all sizes to advance what they already have.
No, that makes total sense. I hope more and more utilities in the US finally make that tech upgrade, especially because of these cybersecurity threats, because of remote work, and eventually blockchain as well. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for taking the time. We really appreciate it. I hope all our listeners also had a good time learning more about blockchain and wastewater utilities. Stay tuned for more. Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.